Right now, shoring up the blue wall, why Wisconsin and Michigan's governors are teaming up to get voters to the polls, plus intimidating voters through text messages, the signs and punishment for those spreading false election information, and making Madison more environmentally friendly, how a new project is helping housing become greener. It's all ahead on News 3 Now at 10. Lions, the Packers, Wolverines, and Badgers. Michigan and Wisconsin, of course, are used to rivalry. But today, Michigan and Wisconsin's Democratic governors teamed up to go for a win in a different competition, the one for the White House. And as our Braden Ross found out, there's a lot on the line for the Harris campaign in these two crucial states. Braden?
Yeah, that's right. This election will be decided by just a few states. And for the Harris campaign, it'll all likely come down to just 3. That's why our neighbor to the east is bringing her Michigan flair to the Dairy State this week.
Coming from a similarly purple state, I can tell you that we can't write off anybody.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers are putting aside their differences this week.
The only time we argue is when we're talking about the Lions and the Packers.
But why is it so crucial for Michigan and Wisconsin's top Democrats to rally voters in their own states? Well, it could win their party at the White House.
We are it. The blue wall is it.
These so-called blue wall Great Lakes states are the key to Harris's winning electoral majority.
Blue wall states, that refers to the group of states that almost always vote Democratic for president. They include the Great Lakes swing states.
Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania had voted Democratic in each election going back to the 1980s.
But in 2016, they flipped and went for Trump, then back to Biden in 2020.
And so the question is, are these reliably blue states?
So how does this all play into the path to victory? Well, let's look at the math.
There are really 7 swing states that will determine who wins the Electoral College.
There are the Sun Belt states, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada.
If Trump wins all of the Sun Belt states, he would get to 268 electoral votes. You need 270 to win.
As for the, quote, blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania,
but Harris needs to sweep all 3 of them. Trump only needs to pick off 1 of the 3, unless we have a big surprise elsewhere in the country.
And that's exactly why Evers and Whitmer are finding common ground this week.
I'm wearing red because I like the Badgers.
Because whoever wins Wisconsin or Michigan will probably win it all.
That this election is going to come down to a handful of states. My state being one of them and yours being another one of them.
Now, Evers and Whitmer's bus tour took down the Hudson, Eau Claire, La Crosse, Portage, and Madison today. They'll make one last stop in Mequon tomorrow morning.
Braden, thank you. Former President Barack Obama and Democratic vice presidential nominee Minnesota Governor Tim Walz are set to campaign right here in Madison next week. The pair will be in town Tuesday. It's the same day that early voting opens in Wisconsin. The time and location for the rally are not yet known. It comes amidst a flurry of visits by top Democrats to the state, including First Lady Dr. Jill Biden just yesterday, and visits from the Vice President Kamala Harris herself in Green Bay and La Crosse on Thursday. Former President Donald Trump on the campaign trail this evening. Trump held back-to-back events in Georgia, a state he lost by fewer than 12,000 votes 4 years ago. The former president also sat for questions with Bloomberg and the Economic Club of Chicago, where he was pressed on his proposal for tariffs. He was also asked if he has spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin since leaving office. So far, Trump has no planned visits in Wisconsin. In addition to that presidential race, voters in the Madison area will see 2 competing school referenda on their ballots. After the referendum fully vests after 4 years, the average homeowner could expect to see an $87 increase each month to their property taxes. Madison School District Superintendent Joe Gothard is asking voters to help out to avoid hard choices down the road. He says some of the progress the district has made would have to be revisited if the referendum doesn't pass this fall.
We've invested a lot in teachers to make sure that we can keep class sizes down. Mental health support for students, which has been, in some cases a crisis around the country.
You can see more from this interview Sunday on For the Record. We also spoke with Dr. Gothard about Southside Elementary. The principal and assistant principal are on leave pending multiple investigations. He confirmed the investigation is being led by an outside group, but would not share more details with us. The state government announces it ended the fiscal year with a positive balance. Currently, there is a surplus, $4.6 billion. But first, we go to our first run forecast. Jacob Montesano on the patio. Jacob?
Yeah, tonight is going to be a cold one, likely the coldest night of the season so far. Let's take a look at the current conditions. Right now, we are at 39 degrees in Madison, clear skies, but a lot of our area already dropping into the middle 30s. And actually further north, there are a few locations already in the upper 20s. So across Dane County, middle to upper 30s at this hour. A few areas still hanging on to the 40s. And like I mentioned, some 20s already. A few areas have already dropped below freezing. Much of our area expected to get below freezing tonight, which would be the first time since April 25th. There are freeze warnings in effect for much of southern Wisconsin, and those that aren't under the freeze warning, the only reason you folks aren't is because you typically see below freezing temperatures this time of the year, and freeze warnings happen when we're likely to get below freezing when it's not as common, which is the case in far southern Wisconsin. So looking at the forecasted lows, we'll be in the upper 20s, lower 30s for much of our area. And with a little bit of a breeze, not going to be too bad, but that little bit of a breeze may cause wind chills to be near 20 degrees. So it's certainly going to be a cold morning tomorrow. And although we may have a few more cold mornings, it's going to feel a lot nicer over the weekend. I'll talk more in detail about that coming up a little bit later.
All right, Jacob, thank you. The Dane County Sheriff's Office is investigating after human remains are found over the weekend. Sunday, the Sheriff's Office responded to Loper Road near the town of Roxbury after a hunter discovered human remains. An investigation into the circumstances surrounding the death is ongoing. An autopsy was completed yesterday. The Dane County Medical Examiner's Office is working to identify those remains. It's an election many are calling high stakes, which is why one student became nervous when she got a vaguely threatening text warning her about voting absentee. As Arman Rahman found, this is not the only time election officials have heard of this happening.
I spoke to Madison's city attorney, and he says this is the second time someone's gotten the same text. Many of us have been bombarded with text messages from campaigns this election cycle. They may be annoying, but Sarah Gold's daughter got a message
out of the blue, and she was panicked.
Because unlike a request for money or her vote, this one said,
voting in a state that you are not legally able to vote in is a crime punishable by X amount of years in prison and a very hefty fine. So obviously she was frightened.
Gold's daughter is 21 years old. She is registered to vote in Wisconsin and had just requested an absentee ballot to vote from school in Tennessee. Turns out they weren't the only ones to get this alarming text.
We were aware of at least 2 of these instances so far, just in the last couple days. I think it is a concern of the clerk's office. It's a concern of our office.
Madison City Attorney Michael Haas says per state statute, they sent these instances to the district attorney's office to investigate whether it falls under voter intimidation.
If they are attempting to make these threats or discourage people from voting in an illegal way, that's a felony. It's a Class I felony. It carries a penalty of up to $10,000 or 3 years and 6 months imprisonment. So it's serious.
He says if you get the same text or one similar, contact your municipal clerk. Normally, we think of voter intimidation or election threats as face-to-face interactions, but Haas says Wisconsin law says it can be any false device or tactic. While it made Gold's daughter nervous, it didn't stop her.
So her vote has been counted and it is legal.
Gold says she's working to file a formal complaint with the Wisconsin Elections Commission. They sent us a statement urging voters to rely on official sources for election information. You can find that full statement online at channel3000.com.
Armand, thank you. Federal officials are taking a closer look at how the U.S. Agriculture Department and state inspectors handled the deadly listeria outbreak at a Boar's Head plant in Virginia. That plant was inspected under a program that allows state inspectors to act on behalf of the federal agency. At least 10 people died. Nearly 50 were hospitalized after that listeria outbreak linked to the Boar's Head deli meats, including liverwurst.
These deaths and hospitalizations were preventable, and they should have been preventable. I want to get to the bottom of why the Boar's Head plant was permitted to continue operating in the face of repeated violations, 84 separate instances of non-compliance involving mildew, mold, insects, holes in walls, puddles of blood.
That is Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. He declined to release the USDA's response. The plant is now closed, and Boar's Head no longer produces liverwurst anywhere. Walgreens announcing it is closing about 1,200 locations, and that includes 500 over the next year. The closures represent a significant escalation from a few months ago when the financially struggling pharmacy chain announced it was shutting down 300 underperforming locations, part of a multi-year optimization program. The 1,200 closures announced today do include those 300 closures announced back in June. A new housing project in downtown Madison is prioritizing more eco-friendly construction. A groundbreaking ceremony was held near West Main at South Bassett for a new apartment building. The project will create 33 Class A apartments in the heart of the city. Advanced construction techniques like mass timber decks and other components manufactured off-site will be used to reduce the development's environmental impact.
Brick together with the insulation we have at the building creates a highly efficient, high-performing facade. Again, the facade performance from memory is roughly 38% above code. So we are very happy about that.
The apartments are expected to be complete by the end of next summer. So to come on News 3 Now at 10, Jacob rejoins us to tell us about the warm-up on the way and helping southern residents after the hurricanes, Helene and Milton, the woman being credited with saving her neighbor's life. Stay with us.
Building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. Compare that to Trump. He fights for himself and his billionaire friends. He intends to enact a national sales tax, the Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by $4,000 a year. Instead of a tax hike, we will pass a middle-class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad. At RG Heating and Air Conditioning, our promise to you is 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Guaranteed service, repairs, and replacements. Installing quality Trane equipment. Trust your home with RG Heating and AC.
Shop the largest selection of Chevy trucks and SUVs in Wisconsin at Bergstrom Chevrolet. Lease a new Silverado 1500 starting at $355 a month, or a 24 Equinox EV starting at $299 a month. Stop in or shop and purchase at BergstromMadison.com.
At Spectrum, we believe every day unlocks a new door to unlimited possibilities. Possibilities to bring you closer to the people and the places you love. Spectrum transforms your gaming experience into a galaxy of adventures with the fastest and most reliable internet. Connect to unlimited possibilities when you switch to Spectrum Internet Premier for only $30 per month when bundled, and save with our 3-year price guarantee and no contracts. Call 1-844-653-6824. With the fastest, most reliable internet, you're always front row to the entertainment you love, no matter where you are. And with advanced Wi-Fi to keep you safe and secure online, you can focus on what matters the most. Spectrum Internet doesn't just power your home. It puts streaming, live TV, sports, and popular apps all at your fingertips. Get incredible savings when you switch to Spectrum Internet Premier for just $30 a month with a 3-year price guarantee. That's our promise to you. Call 1-844-653-6824.
Prices are up, wages are down, inflation is crushing Wisconsin families. Yet Sarah Kieski, she supports lifting revenue limits, allowing property tax rates to skyrocket unchecked. Even more radical, Kieski's backers want to ban natural gas to heat our homes, driving utility bills through the roof. Tax hikes and higher prices for families and those living on fixed incomes. That's Kieski's record. Expensive and extreme. Reject Sarah Kieski and her radical agenda.
He murdered a father of 3, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access.
It sounds insane because it is insane. Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
There's a lot to love about life in the 608. Fundraisers, farmers markets, family events.
Tell Josh what inspires you, and it might be featured on News 3 Now this morning. In the 608, weekdays only on News 3 Now this morning.
You're watching News 3 Now at 10. Moving forward.
The state government announces it ended the fiscal year with a positive balance. Currently, there's a surplus of $4.6 billion. In addition to that, the state saw its rainy day fund increase to a record high of almost $2 billion, while the ending balance of the fiscal year is $821 million higher than estimated. Budget figures for the 2024 fiscal year included a $423 million transfer from the state general fund to the capital improvement fund that'll happen this fiscal year. Relief efforts continue after the historic scale of disaster across the southeastern United States. North Carolina's governor says challenges remain, like getting water service back in devastated areas like Asheville. Down in Florida, fuel shortages and seaport damage have slowed recovery efforts, but behind these larger progress headlines, there are smaller, equally important moments. Brandy Clark of Fort Pierce, Florida, thanking the woman she says saved her life during Hurricane Milton.
Went flying backwards as fast as I could, laying on the horn and screaming.
I hear her scream, "Get in your house." No sooner than he shuts the door behind me, my house just started shaking. It was the craziest 15 seconds of my life.
In North Carolina, FEMA has now approved 77,000 people for individual assistance, with more than $99 million already paid out. And on Florida's power front, the governor there says about 97% of the state was back on the grid by Monday. The cost to insure your home has skyrocketed, and those rates are expected to keep climbing, especially in places where more severe weather is hitting. Even before Milton and Helene caused all that damage down in Florida, home insurance premiums were up more than 50% in that state. Business analysts say there are two driving factors for those increases.
One is that home prices have gone up by so much, and then also, of course, the inflationary surge means home rebuilding costs a lot more. Add to that climate change. Those events are so frequent now, and the insurance company said in order to actually insure people properly, we have to raise the premiums, and that accounts for this massive 50% increase across the board.
Experts add potential home buyers should always consider the climate risk when purchasing a home. Zillow has introduced a new tool measuring flood, wildfire, and other risk factors. Realtor.com already had such a feature, and insurance premiums now account for about 25% of mortgage payments in those high-risk areas. Hurricane Milton hit a new record in how quickly it went from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane. There are three elements that make a perfect tropical cyclone. One is low wind shear. 2 is high moisture in the air, and then 3 is warm water temperatures. Both Helene and Milton developed in the Gulf of Mexico, where temperatures are 7 to 8 degrees higher than what's considered normal during this time of the year. Local scientists are pointing to climate change as a culprit.
Global warming, the greenhouse effect is heating the atmosphere. And the ocean, of course, responds to the air above it, right? It doesn't generate its own heat. It equilibrates.
Now, in addition to how strong a storm can get from warmer waters, there's also evidence that climate change can affect their tracks of those storms as well. Winter a couple months away, but climate experts are already predicting it'll feel a lot different than last winter. That's because La Nina is expected to dominate the season this year. The climate pattern is marked by cooler than average ocean temps, and that could bring more precipitation than normal in some parts of the country, but that does not guarantee there will be more snow. According to the Climate Prediction Center, La Nina will likely develop by November and persist into early spring of next year. Ahead of those colder temperatures, there are some steps you can take to ready your home for the winter months. Experts recommend clearing out your outdoor spigots and sprinklers so your pipes don't freeze once the weather goes below freezing. That could cause your basement to flood if those pipes burst. Another proactive move is to check your furnace's air filter so you're not straining the blower motor. The freeze and frost will continue tonight. Some folks probably already firing up that furnace. It was pretty chilly out there this morning, Jacob.
Yeah, and tonight is going to be even colder. We're likely going to see the coldest temperatures of the season so far, with frost likely. Now, the good news is that temperatures after tonight will slowly climb. We'll have highs in the 70s by the time we get to the weekend, and we also are expecting dry conditions going forward. Now, let's take a look at the freeze warnings. Looks like they're not showing up. There they are. So, freeze warnings for pretty much everybody. Again, those of you in central Wisconsin, the only reason you folks aren't under the freeze warning is because temperatures more commonly drop below freezing this time of the year in central and northern Wisconsin. But in southern Wisconsin, we have those freeze warnings in effect from 1 a.m. until 9 a.m. And looking at the forecasted lows, we are going to see low temperatures into the upper 20s for some areas. Actually, we already are seeing some temperatures in the 20s in central Wisconsin. So again, likely going to be the coldest air of the season so far. The last time we dropped dropped below freezing was April 25th. And this is typically when we see our first freeze of the season in southern Wisconsin. Now, if we don't get to freezing tonight, we are very likely, but it is a possibility that a few areas stay above it. We're likely not going to get back to that level for quite some time. So if we miss out on tonight, we may be late compared to average, but because tonight is expected to get below freezing, we'll kind of be right near that average of when we normally see the first freeze in southern Wisconsin. Now, looking at the high temperatures for your Wednesday, we're going to see plenty of sunshine. Highs will be in the middle 50s, so a little bit warmer than today, but still a little bit below average. But those temperatures are going to be very nice by the weekend. We're talking about 70s, and we're also going to continue to see plenty of sunshine. Now, we are going to see those temperatures dip back into the 50s by the middle of next week, but despite all these temperature swings, we're still not expecting much rainfall at all. We may not even see a drop of rainfall from now all the way through the weekend. Next chance of even the small chance of rain will be Monday night. So definitely going to remain dry, and we're likely going to continue to see drought conditions worsen. We keep talking about this the last couple of weeks, and even it's been this kind of a story the last month or so, and it's likely going to get worse. Now we see a severe drought in northeast Iowa developing, also severe drought in northern Wisconsin, and the dry pattern we're seeing is likely not going to help. Now here's some good news. Towards the end of the month, this is really beyond the 10-day forecast though, we are expecting some above average precipitation to move back into our area. Still a bit unclear as to just how much we will see, but that's a little bit of some good news in terms of, you know, the fact that we need the rainfall. Now, as we look at the 10-day forecast, we're not going to see much rain, especially the next 5 to 7 days. Again, towards the end of the 10-day forecast, a little bit of a better chance of rainfall, but still expected to be dry. So although it's going to be cold tonight and going to be cold tomorrow night as well, we're going to be very nice over the weekend with highs in the 70s, but then we're going to drop back into the 50s before looking like we're going to rise back a little bit again by next Friday.
And coming up in sports, it's Big Ten time for Wisconsin men's hockey. But the Badgers say it's a weekend for revenge. That's next on News 3 Now.
News 3 Now First Warn Weather is brought to you by Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor.
Discover a shopping and design experience as comfortable as the furniture. Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor. Schedule your free design consultation today.
Dear road rivals, no truck on the road drives value like the Tundra. Day after day, mile after mile, it all adds up to big savings under the hood. What's under yours? Toyota Tundra.
Right now, lease a new Tundra for $479 a month or get 3.99% APR for 72 months on a new Tundra. Find yours at Toyota.com. Toyota. Let's go places.
Peter Barca dishonored our service and America's commitment to veterans.
And Congress, Barca voted to cut our benefits, impacting our lives, our families. It's just wrong.
It's just wrong.
Veterans can't trust career politicians like Peter Barca, and neither can you.
Brian Stile will always work to protect veterans like me.
Brian is not a career politician, he's a fighter, and he's always working for us.
I'm Brian Stile, and I approve this message.
In 2016, Donald Trump said he would choose only the best people to work in his White House. Now those people have a warning for America. Trump is not fit to be president again. Here's his vice president.
Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States.
I cannot in good conscience endorse Donald Trump this year.
His defense secretary.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
His national security advisor.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
And the nation's former highest-ranking military officer.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is too big a risk for America.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
I'm Tammy Baldwin, and I approve this message.
I am totally opposed to abortion.
You heard him.
I am totally opposed to abortion.
What would Eric Hovde do in the Senate? Mitch McConnell and extremists would gain a majority. The power to ban abortion nationwide. No exceptions for rape or incest. Criminal penalties for doctors. More extreme anti-abortion judges on the courts.
I am totally opposed to abortion.
Eric Hovde, what's wrong with this guy?
With Chevy trucks, be ready for adventure. With power you can count on. Capability that doesn't compromise. A hard-working EV with more range than any competitor. And the potential to take you anywhere.
Get 0% financing plus make no monthly payments for 90 days on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups. Or get $5,750 total value on this Silverado. See your Badgerland Chevy dealer today.
After a series split with Lindenwood to open their season, Wisconsin men's hockey now turns their attention to Big Ten play with Ohio State coming to town this weekend. Yeah, that Buckeye team who was a thorn in Mike Hastings' squad side last year. The two split in the regular season, and then it was OSU coming to the Kohl Center and ending their run in the Big Ten tournament. That's a series this group hasn't forgotten about.
The one thing you get out of a Big Ten series consistently is really if you're not good, you're going to get beat. And if you're not good and you're less than that, you can get embarrassed. And so our idea is just go out and take advantage of the opportunity that we have. We learned a lot last weekend. We're back in our own building. We're playing against a team that ended our season a year ago. We've got a lot of things to play for right now.
Fresh off a historic run in the WNIT, expectations are trending up for Wisconsin women's basketball. They bring back their key pieces, Sarah Williams and Ronnie Porter, along with a handful of other veterans, and Marissa Mosley called this squad her deepest yet. Now, the Badgers will scrimmage on Saturday, and then 10 days later, they'll host Stevens Point. In between that, it's a lot of the same, and this group is looking forward to tipping off their season.
Especially for your younger players, this is the toughest time of the year because it's really redundant and you feel like, you know, a little bit of Groundhog Day. And the older guys are like, it's like this, but then it will go like this. And once we start rolling, it's just 1 week into the next. And so they're really excited. I think it's probably some nerves, you know, popping up a bit.
And just a reminder to check out this week's Wisconsin Huddle with Darian Dupree. We talk all things Badger football, including what it's going to be like to go back home this weekend and play in front of friends and family. Show airs on Friday at 6:30 right here on News 3 Now. It was a windy day 2 of the State Girls Golf Tournament, but that didn't slow down Beaver Dam's McKenna Nelson. She shot a 7 under 65 yesterday to lead after 18 holes, and she'd stayed atop of the leaderboard. On 6, Nelson just misses it for eagle. She'd tap in for an easy bird. Then on 8, another tap in for birdie. She'd finish 6 under and tie a state meet record in the process for best 36-hole score of 138. She is your Division I state champ. We're back after this.
Billionaire banker Eric Hovde has a plan for Social Security.
Do you favor either raising the retirement age or cutting benefits?
I favor both.
Raising the retirement age?
You have to start changing the retirement age.
Hovde wants to raise the retirement age as high as 72. And Hovde just proposed cutting Social Security by 28%, costing the average beneficiary more than $6,000 a year. Eric Hovde, what's wrong with this guy?
I'm Tammy Baldwin, and I approve this message.
If there's one thing we like, it's choices. And your Ford dealer is the place to start. With a full lineup of vehicles and available powertrains. Get your ideal combination of power and capability with gas, hybrid, or all electric. But more important than the power you choose is what you choose to do with it.
Choose FlexBuy on Escape and get 1.9% APR financing for 66 months plus $2,000 FlexBuy cash. Only at your local Wisconsin Ford dealer.
4 years ago, rioters set this Minneapolis police station on fire, trying to burn me and my fellow police officers alive. Governor Tim Walz left us for dead, And Kamala Harris?
This is a movement, I'm telling you. Everyone beware. They're not going to let up, and they should not.
She raised millions to help bail rioters out of jail and supported defunding the police. Kamala sold cops out and put families at risk. Kamala Harris is too weak and too dangerous to be president.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Get an 11% rebate on Masterforce tools now at Menards. Finish your projects faster with a new Masterforce 20-volt chainsaw. It offers quieter and more efficient performance. Now only $119.99 after rebate. Stay comfortable on the job with a Masterforce 20-volt portable 60,000 BTU propane heater. It heats an area up to 1,350 square feet with ultra-quiet operation. Buy one now for only $139.99 after 11% rebate.
Save big money at Menards.
We know we cannot have a strong middle class without American manufacturing. Under Donald Trump, America lost nearly 200,000 manufacturing jobs. His record is a disaster for working people. Under my plan, we will invest in the industries that built America, because ours is a fight for the future. I come from the middle class, and I will never forget where I come from.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
We had such a great experience with Empire, we would recommend it to anyone.
Real customers share their stories about Empire today.
As a matter of fact, we already have. Customer service and the personal touch is really where it's at. The quality, too, is important to us, and the quality of the flooring was great. I mean, we've had people come in our home and say, wow, this is really beautiful. Where'd you have it done? Empire.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today. Closed captioning sponsored by Community Shares of Wisconsin's Workplace Giving Campaign.
Tonight, I think by now I have the experience and discernment to say with the deepest gravity, last night's Trump town hall was banana pants boo-boo bonkers.
New tonight. And Jacob is back. One final check of the forecast.
Yeah, we're going to see some pretty cold temperatures tonight. Lows will be dropping into the 20s for a lot of our area. We're likely going to see the first freeze of the season so far for many locations. Now, temperatures will slowly warm up after this. Still going to be cold tomorrow night into early Thursday, but by the weekend, we're going to have highs in the 70s and lows near 50. The lows over the weekend will be similar to the highs today, but then we are going to drop back into the 50s by middle of next week. But despite all the temperature change, we're still going to be pretty dry.
Looks like a good weekend ahead, too.
Yep.
Jacob, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Producer now at 10. Have a good night.